Okay, good to go. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:02. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel, or by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting being held electronically. Members of the public may also attend the meeting in person at the Coldstream Community Centre located at 10227 Ilderton Road in Coldstream. There are no additions to the agenda tonight. I'm looking to council. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Burrs?
Through the chair, yes, if you're declaring a pecuniary interest in regards to the item, you'll opt out of the item as a whole. Okay. So you won't discuss or vote on that particular item. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. There are no delegations or presentations or petitions to note for this evening's agenda. So the adoption of the minutes is next. The motion before us is that the minutes of the meeting held on January 11th, 2023 be adopted as printed. Do I have a mover, please? And a second. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Moving on to the consent agenda, there are 7 items listed here. These are items that are received in one motion, but council can request to speak to or have another an item approved for further action. Anything here anyone wants to speak to or comment on? Yes, Councillor Shipley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 6.2, James, your report there. What is the cost for a marriage? What do we charge for marriage?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. So to perform the marriage ceremonies themselves, we charge a fee of $325 for the marriage ceremony. Most couples who do come to us to get married also obtain their marriage license here as well. That is a separate fee of $150. However, a marriage license can be obtained from any Ontario municipality. So one could choose to just have us perform the ceremony at that rate. Thank you.
Is there anything else? I don't see any hands. In that case, the motion before us is that consent items 6.1 through 6.7 listed on the January 25th, 2023 agenda be adopted as recommended. Do I have a mover, please? And a second. Councillor Burrs, Deputy Mayor Brennan. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to staff reports. We have a report from Heather Kefren, who is our communications specialist, and she will provide an overview of the council grants and Delaware Hydro Reserve Fund grants. Go ahead, whenever you're ready, Heather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm pleased to be here tonight to talk about the council grants. As a reminder, the council grants are funds that we allocate each year to community-based organizations that do some fabulous work in our community. The total for the grant is $20,000, and that's spread out among the applicants that are had to have met the criteria. This year, we accept applications all year long, with a close in called for applications in November, and after that point, we look at the grants that have come in, we review them against the criteria, and we present to you the staff recommendations that you'll find in the council report. So tonight we're recommending 8 organizations who have sought funding. They represent a huge range of activities. They include Canada Day celebrations, funding for the archives, funding for a turtle watch group, and also Legion and a few others. You'll see in some cases we've put some caveats to that because we needed a bit more information. In the council grant application, we're always trying to balance having an application that's not completely so likely that people are turned off of, applying, but on the other hand, we sometimes need to go back to them with your direction to get a little more clarification before we would want to allocate the funds. In the same process, we also allocate funds for the Delaware Hydro Reserve. So those come out of a reserve fund. The amount available each year varies depending on the interest gained the previous year. This year, we have had just one applicant that we feel should go forward. in Delaware. Those funds are limited to being used in the town of Delaware's village of Delaware, so that's why we have a much smaller pool of people who apply for those. So I think that's kind of a good overview. I don't know if you had any questions or.
Thank you for that report. I'll look to council. Any questions? I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Heather, usually the Gilderton Fair Board gets a grant. Is that now just in lieu of a grant? We let them use the facilities there, or because I know in the past we've always granted them like $1,500 or something.
Through you, Madam Mayor, indeed, they are eligible for a $1,000 grant. It's part of their agreement with us, so it's included here, but it's not brought forward for your approval because it's already been approved standard contract.
Yeah, through the mayor, when we redid their agreement a few years back, we just included that annual donation within the agreement, so we didn't have to do the council grant piece.
Is there anyone else? I don't see any hands, so we do have a motion before us. And that is that in accordance with the council grants policy, these are all requests. Delco Bridge Canada Community, $1,000. Middlesex Center Archives, $5,000. Optimist Club of Bryant's Timber, $1,500. Optimist Club of Ilderton, $750. Copper Hill Picnic, $1,200. Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 531, $2,600. The request from Pine County Heritage was $1,500, and the Turtle Watch Middlesex Center is $1,000. And in addition, that the Delaware Linus be approved in the amount of $800 in accordance with Delaware Hydro Reserve Fund policy. And further that staff be directed to prepare correspondence and/or issue payment to the above noted organizations. Is there a mover, please? Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thanks again, Heather. And we'll move on to application for consent, B12, 2022, and zoning bylaw amendment, Z11, 2022. Dan Fitzgerald, who is our county planner, is going to provide an overview of the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. This application for council tonight is with respect to a proposed severance as well as a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application. This application was previously heard at a public meeting on December 22nd, where council referred the application back to staff to discuss a proposed amended motion to the proposed zoning, which would see the remnant lands rezoned from an agricultural A1 zone to an agricultural no residence or A3 zone. So I have discussed the application further with the applicants, who I understand will also like to speak to that proposed change tonight. I would note to council that rezoning the remnant lands from an A1 to an A3 would represent a down zoning of the property's current potential, as they would be able to construct a home now on the farmland that is currently vacant. So I do note that planning staff have reviewed or have provided a previous recommendation to approve the consent application as well as a zoning bylaw amendment in principle, and that a bylaw be brought forwarded once the deposited reference has been received. I haven't received any new information or any new information that has been presented. And so as such, my recommendation does remain the same. However, I'm certainly available to answer any questions that council. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Okay, our residents are online and waiting to come on. Nancy White and Patty Munker are tenants. We'll probably get.
Hello,
Hello,
it's
oh, you're there.
yes,
Good. The
yes,
floor
I'm
is yours
here.
if you. Yes, I said,
Okay,
you can
thank
go
you.
ahead and make your comments.
Oh, here we go. Start video. I'm sorry, my mistake. There I am. Here I am. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. We are not developers. We are farm kids, and we grew up just down the road from the property we're here to speak with you about. It's been farmed by our family for over 60 years. We've handpicked rocks from the fields and remember too well blisters from baling hay. And Wayne, over the years, has hauled farm machinery across Highway number 4 and spent many an hour on the seat of a tractor on this land. When this parcel of land came up for sale in the mid-60s, our fathers recognized its potential, a farm on the edge of a growing hamlet. They purchased it with that in mind, with the future in mind, and as an investment for their families. Our application for consent now is simply the first step in exploring the potential our dads saw for future development within established hamlet boundaries approved within the municipal official plan. However, our application seems to have become complicated with the prospect of downzoning the residual property. This was raised at the December 14th meeting. We consider this move to be punitive, and we'd like to make our position clear to council. Just to provide a bit more history, within the review of the municipality's official plan about 10 years ago, there was an initiative to remove existing development rights. All lands existing within hamlet boundaries that were in agricultural use or undeveloped were to be downzoned, taken out of the hamlet boundaries and subsequently rezoned to existing use so that no change in use could be made without rezoning. Our mums, then joint owners of the property, managed to retain hamlet designation on the front 5 acres along 13 Mile Road, and with that, the right to develop the land subject to approvals. But they lost development rights for 20 acres of land, a substantial portion of the 45-acre property. They did not, at that time, appeal this downzoning to the Ontario Municipal Tribunal because this policy and designation change was part of a comprehensive municipal-wide review responding to provincial policy. And it was applied to a number of owners across the municipality. They were not alone in their loss of the land's potential. So to reiterate, this property has been downzoned. At the December 14th meeting, we heard that a councillor was concerned that the A1 lands at the far rear of the property could potentially accommodate a large rural estate development and that this would impact the preservation of prime agricultural land. There was a proposal that evening that imposing on our individual application the condition to downzone the rear A1 lands to A3, a zone that doesn't allow residents, would solve this concern. We note from our review of the Red Line official plan that council has proposed a number of changes around the subdivision of surplus agricultural dwellings, including the provision that any remaining A1 lands be rezoned as A3. We note that the bylaws A3 zone preamble states the intent of this zone as follows. The no residence A3 zone shall generally apply to agricultural holdings that are retained following the severance of surplus farm residences. We want to point out that this is not the situation for our property. There are no surplus farm dwellings. There are no buildings. We actually think it quite unlikely that a luxury estate would ever be built at the back of this property in the portion designated as A1. It's pretty much flat, open field, surrounded by other lands under industrial style farming practices. It's really not a particularly attractive setting for residents. And because of the proximity to the hamlet, the luxury of an equine establishment would not likely be allowed, or at least be minimized, something that those looking for a rural luxury estate would typically want to be able to enjoy on an acreage of this size. We'd also like to point out the unintended consequences of imposing an A3 zone. Downgrading, or to use the more legal term we've been using of downzoning, our property's potential uses to those of an A3 zone, limits the ability of a future owner to live on this property and carry out innovative agricultural uses of the land that are suited to a small acreage, such as niche farming or market gardening. The A3 zoning effectively relegates the entire remaining acreage to industrial style farming. This is an unfortunate loss to the diversity of the potential farming styles for the property, particularly given the proximity of these lands to the large marketplace of London. If council feels there is an issue with losing small A1 parcels to luxury development, this should be examined as part of a comprehensive municipal-wide review, rather than a reflexive, site-specific imposition. A larger discussion of the pros and cons of A1 versus A3 zoning and the development of a policy that is applied equitably across the municipality would be the more informed and impartial approach, rather than downgrading development potential with random A3 designations if and when an application with A1 land, such as ours, happens to come to council's attention. Finally, to reiterate, imposing an A3 zoning is down zoning and is limiting the available options to our individual parcel of land. Particularly, this is disconcerting because there has been no word to compensation. Our land has already been down zoned a few years ago. We didn't appeal to the tribunal at that time, as the down zoning was the result of a larger review of the official plan and was applied equitably across the municipality to several properties at the same time. Further, the details of this application do not refer to any subdivision of surplus farm dwellings, the stated trigger for rezoning to A3. A motion today to make the down zoning of our property to A3 a condition of our application for consent is not the result of a comprehensive review. Quite simply, it singles us out. To come full circle, we're not developers. Our families have been members of the community for generations, and for the reasons stated, we would like to take issue with the assignment of an A3 zone on our individual property as a condition of consent, and respectfully request council to consider our position. The question of what our plans are for the future also was posed at last month's meeting. And the answer is, we don't know. We can only reiterate at this time, we are simply making an application to carry out the first step in a process, separating the lands within the hamlet boundaries from the remnant farmlands defines what we have to work with and helps us begin to formulate our options. We have a lot to investigate and determine in order to do the best we can with the legacy that was left to us by our parents. Our future proposal, if and when we make one, will be informed by the requisite studies, public reviews, and council approvals. And you can be assured that we won't be doing anything that you're not aware of every step of the way, because you set the process. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. And this is the end of our presentation, but I would like to actually give Dan an opportunity to just correct something on his report on page 8. Is Dan able to speak to that, or shall I just give some points on it?
So Dan, do you want to address the question? Are you aware of it?
Through the chair to council. So I believe you may be referring to the reference to the hamlet designation?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And
yes.
as well as the public water supply and the lot size.
That's correct. Yeah. So there is a mistake, a misquote in the planning report that refers to, I believe, the hamlet of Denton as opposed to the hamlet of Burr, and then refers to the zoning standards that are applied in the hamlet of Denfield versus the hamlet of Burr. So in this case, the lands would not be subject to municipal water or municipal sanitary. However, it doesn't change the fact that the zoning would still permit the lot size that's proposed based on the age of one. So yes, I do acknowledge that.
Thank you for that, Dan.
Okay, so I'll turn now to council. So, Councillor Arts, I'll start with you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the applicant. Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, to Nancy. I was the one that raised the concerns on A1. I'm still concerned about it, but I realize I can't do anything about it, so I'll accept this as proposed. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? Councillor Cates?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think to Dan. So I too had the note about Denfield, not her. I just want to clarify. So if I look at the sketch, so we are going to have one chunk property at the, along the roadway that could do whatever in the future, be divided, subdivided off or whatever. And then we'll have like the flagship back there. So are you currently, the way you've written your report, is it to stay A1 or are you recommending A3?
Through the chair to Councillor Cates, so the recommendation that's contained in the report is to maintain the remnant lands as the A1 zone. The recommendation more specifically speaks to the lands that are zoned EU, which basically seeks to recognize the resultant size from the severance. So it just looks, because the EU zone states that essentially doesn't change, it just exists as it is. The site-specific recommendation for that zoning is just to reflect the reduced size and frontage as a result of severance that would be applied. Application B 22.
So through you, Madam Mayor. So then you've got the E1 and you got, or the EU and the A1. So the EU means A1. So we would leave it as A1. Now it's called EU.
Through the chair, maybe there's a bit of a misunderstanding. So if you look at the location map that's provided, the portion of lands at the rear of the property is zoned A1, and there's a portion in between which fronts down to the roadway, which is zoned EU. And Nancy had referred to that previously in her presentation. The lands that are zoned EU are the ones that are proposed to be rezoned, the front portion to the hamlet residential zoning. And then the mid portion would just be a site-specific EU that recognizes that reduced size for the severance.
So the map I'm looking at in the pink zone boundary, it says EU. That's what's messing me up. So the large portion of land left over will stay as A1, the way you have it recommended, not A3.
Through the chair, so based on my recommendation, it would remain as A1.
And then the front would be the smaller front portion.
So through the chair, so the lands in the map that show as outlined as red, they're currently zoned existing use or EU. They would be rezoned to a hamlet residential first density zone, which is an HR1 holding. And then the lands as shown on the location map that are outlined in the yellow would be rezoned to a site-specific existing use or EU zone, which again just recognizes that reduced size in front.
And on my screen, I don't see yellow.
Yeah.
I've got it straight, but I just saw the clerks. I'm wondering if you can share your screen, and then when you say yellow, then everyone will see.
Yeah.
I know which it is, but I can't. It doesn't show up.
Can everyone see that map?
You can.
So based on the severance proposal, the front portion here, which is subject to the consent, so that area that is red, would be rezoned from existing use to an HR1 holding zone. And that's to reflect that future residential potential of the lands that are within the existing settlement area. And the lands that are outlined here in yellow, which are noted as EU, would be rezoned to so they currently are EU, and they would be rezoned to a site-specific EU zone, which just recognizes the fact that they're a reduced size and frontage. The backlands, in this particular instance, so the backlands, which is the remainder of the property, is currently zoned A1 and is recommended to stay A1. Report.
All good now.
Yeah, I thought the only land we were talking about is what was in the yellow and red right there. I didn't know we had the big land at the back. So just to clarify that Nancy's concern of it downgrading to an A3, that's not in your recommendation anyways, right, Dan?
So through the chair to Councillor Cates, that's correct. That wasn't in my initial recommendation. That was a motion that was brought forward by council at the previous meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Shipley.
Madam Mayor, through the mayor, is Rob on, PW Director, is he on?
Good evening.
Hi, Rob. Just a quick question, Rob. That land to the north of 13 Mile Road, is it served by municipal well or private well?
It's currently not serviced by municipal water, and it would not be serviced by municipal water. Only a portion of Burr is serviced by the municipal well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who needs to ask a question? Okay, in that case, we have a motion before us, and that is that the consent applications B12, 2022, filed by Wayne Lewis, Linda White, Nancy White, Steve White, and Patty Munkittrick, in order to sever 4.33 acre residential land holding from a 48.52 acre agricultural parcel to facilitate future residential lot creation, with the severed lot having a frontage of approximately 130 meters on 13 Mile Road and an area of approximately 4.33 acres, and a retained frontage of approximately 20 meters along 13 Mile Road and an area of approximately 44.5 acres from a property legally described as part of Lot 17, Concession 13 South, be granted, and that the consent B12, 2022 be subject to 11 conditions as noted in your staff report, and further that the reasons for granting the consent application B12, 2022 include that the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, it conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and was subject to the conditions the proposal complies with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. The rezoning recommendation specifically is that the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z11 2022 for land known musically as 14 213 Mile Road to rezone the severed lands from existing use, that is the EU zone, to hamlet residential first density with the holding zone and the retained lands from the existing use zone to the site-specific existing use exception zone to recognize the reduced frontage and the area of lands that it be granted, and that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council for consideration once the positive reference plan has been provided to the satisfaction of the municipality. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Arts and Councillor Heffernan, call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for your presentation, Ms. White, and Dan, thanks for the report. Moving on to item 7.3. We're moving to committee adjustment first. We need a motion that council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:31 p.m. in order to sit as the committee of adjustment under section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider minor variance applications listed on the January 25th, 2023 council agenda. Mover, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I'm just going to review the order of procedure and details. So the members of the public that wish to receive further notification on any of the minor variance applications being considered today, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have any questions on any of the applications being heard today, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our RSO policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order for the proceedings is as follows, and it's the same for each one. I'll start by asking the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present the staff report. Then the applicant or their agent has the chance to speak to that application. Then the public who have registered to speak or who are in attendance will be asked for their comments. Please state your name so that it can be noted in the meeting minutes. Then the municipal clerk or planner will note additional comments received, circulated agencies, and the public not included in the planning report. Then they'll look to the committee to ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And finally, then we'll call for motions regarding the application. So now we can move to number 8.1. Dan, would you present the report for application for minor variance file number 825/2022?
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of the committee. So for all those that don't know me, my name is Dan Fitzgerald. I'm a planner with Middlesex County Planning, and I'll be providing professional planning services here tonight for Middlesex Center Council and Committee of Adjustment. So you'll hear lots from me. So in terms of item 8.1, the purpose and effect of the application for minor variance is to seek relief from Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum front yard setback for a single detached residence in the Hamlet Residential First Density Exception 1 zone. The applicant in this case is requesting a minimum front yard setback of 31.6 meters from the center line of County Road 22 or Egremont Drive, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum setback of 38 meters from center line of the road. And the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of one single detached dwelling on the lands. So the lot is located within the hamlet of Melrose. It's bounded by residential development to the east and west and agricultural lands to the north as well as. It maintains a frontage of approximately 36.6 meters along Egremont and an area of approximately 0.47 acres. It is designated settlement area in the Middlesex County official plan, hamlet in the Middlesex Center official plan, and its zone Hamlet Residential First Density Exception 1 zone in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The property is regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and it would require a Section 28 permit prior to the building permit on this. Due to the amount of regulated lands through the Conservation Authority, the applicant has worked with the Conservation Authority to establish what would be considered an appropriate building pocket for the single detached dwelling. And given the setbacks to the road, the applicant is requesting to reduce the setback from 38 meters to 31.6 meters in order to keep the home out of the regulated flood hazard area on the back of the lot. So as indicated in the planning report, I have reviewed the application against the Planning Act tests for minor variance. Those being, is it minor in nature? Does it meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw? And is it considered appropriate and desirable? And so in this case, I am of the opinion that the requested reduction of the front yard setback does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And as such, I am recommending approval of the variance subject to the 2 conditions, those being that the owner successfully receive a Section 8 permit, as well as an entrance permit from the County of Middlesex. Thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. We have Lindsay Bruce, who is the applicant in attendance, and she has a presentation to provide on the application. Hello, whenever you're ready to present, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan, for introducing the project. That was really great overview of everything that we're doing here and how hard we've been working with the Conservation Authority for sure on this one. Yeah, we provided the committee a brief presentation. I can go through it if that's what the committee would like. It's as Dan said, it's a single family dwelling on the existing vacant lot. We are proposing to service with a private septic system, which has also been included on the plan and reviewed by conservation. So we are meeting the required servicing as well. Yeah, and as Dan said, the driver on the front yard setback is really just providing as much distance as we can from the rear yard. And we will be providing a new entrance to Egremont, and we are okay with the condition of an entrance permit for sure, and a conservation permit.
You're done?
Yeah, unless anybody has any questions or.
Well, if the committee does, then you're still here. Don't go away. All right. So are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this? Okay, none of the people here are here for this file. So I'll look to the committee then. Are there questions of the applicant? Deputy Mayor Brennan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's for Dan. I'm somewhat surprised, unless I missed it in your report, that the county hasn't commented on this, that they don't want any land off the front of the slot for road widening or anything like that. I'm rather surprised that the county hasn't weighed in on this.
So through the chair to Deputy Mayor Brennan. So through minor variance applications, the county is not permitted to take road widening.
Learn something every day. Okay, I have Councillor Heffernan next.
Through the chair to Dan, that was actually my concern as well, because usually there's anybody that wants to cover or do anything to the property. There's a line, or center line to the edge of property. So I'm just right.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Dan, or you've said it all, haven't you?
So yeah, so through the chair, you kind of cut out there for all of us on the other side, but I think I know what you said. So with respect to road dedications, they are limited to certain planning applications. Minor variances are not one where a municipality.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I don't see any of their hands. We do have a motion before us. All right, in that case, the motion before us is that minor variance application A18, 2022, filed by Lindsay Bruce on behalf of Michael and Mary Johnston, relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish a minimum front yard setback of 31.6 from the center line of County Road 22 for property legally described as part lot 14, concession 3 north, in the municipality of Middlesex Center, County of Middlesex, be granted subject to the following conditions: that the owner be required to successfully obtain a Section 28 permit from the Conservation Authority, and that the owner successfully apply for an entrance permit from the County of Middlesex for access to County Road 22. And further, that the reasons for granting a minor variance for application A2522 are that the request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's official plan. The request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development of the subject property. I'm looking for a mover, please. Councillor Cates and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move on now to item 8.2. And this is your file again, Dan. The floor is yours when you're ready.
Through the chair, thanks, members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of application for minor variance is to seek relief from Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw as it does relate to the maximum permissible gross floor area as well as height for an accessory building that is located in the agricultural A1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings of 200.6 square meters or 2159 square feet, also represented as 2.4 lot coverage. Whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 165 square meters of gross floor area or 3% lot coverage. So in this case, that would be a maximum size of 165. The applicant is also seeking relief to the maximum permitted height for an accessory building to 7.24 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum height 6.5 meters. And the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of one accessory building in the rear yard of an existing residential property. So the subject lands are located in an agricultural area that is surrounded by large rural residential lots. It is bounded by residential development to the east and west, as well as agricultural lands to the north and south. It maintains a frontage of approximately 45.7 meters along County Road 28 or Medway Road, and an area of approximately 2.06 meters. It is designated agricultural in the County of Middlesex official plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and it's zoned agricultural A1 zone in Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The lands, I would note, are also regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. I have reviewed the application against the Planning Acts for test for minor variance. I am of the opinion, as indicated in my report, that the potential impact of a building of the size is not considered to be an impact, provided that it's fully used for residential purposes. Also, the location of the building on the lot behind the main residence does help to reduce any potential impact of the building on the lot from the road. I would note that the current recommendation has neglected to include a maximum height of 7.23 meters in the report. So as such, I have submitted a revised recommendation of the clerk in advance of tonight's meeting. Additionally, I've also included a condition for council consideration, and that is that the accessory building shall only be used for personal use or as permitted in the in-force bylaw. So given the above, I am recommending approval of minor variance A26-2022, subject to the three conditions, those being that the building be located in the same general location, that the applicant be required to obtain a Section 28 permit from the River Conservation Authority, and that the accessory building only be used for personal use or as permitted by the zoning bylaw. So thank you, and I'm available for any questions that you have.
Thank you for that report, Dan. Mr. McGuire, the owner, is available to answer questions. And I'll look to the audience then. Are there any members of the public in attendance who'd like to speak to this? Oh, you're there in person. I'm sorry. Okay, not online, present. It's so much better to be here in person. Okay, I'll look to the committee then. Are there any questions? Dan or, okay, we'll start with you, Deputy Mayor Brett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Probably going to sound like a broken record because I brought this up before about the size of this building. In Dan's interpretation that a minor variance is not necessarily based on the extent of the zoning bylaw varied, rather than based on whether the impact of the variance can be considered minor. For this owner, it may not impact municipality, but there's nothing says when it's sold that someone else will look at this building and say it's a good place for me to run my business out of, or something like that. And that's always a concern. And I realize we have bylaws and everything that prohibit that, but it becomes increasingly difficult to enforce all of this. Once something gets in place, for us to go to the extent to try to get rid of it, costs the municipality a lot of money and a lot of time. So I'm going to say that I don't agree that this is minor. It might be minor in nature for the people around there, but I think for the municipality, this is not minor in nature. And I do have a major problem with approving this.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Councillor Shipley, and then I'll take it. Councillor Hibbert.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the owner, why are we going so big with this? Just what is the purpose of it?
Okay. So the purpose of the size of the building, so my wife's grandfather passed away. My grandfather passed away and I've inherited a lot of, they're both farmers. I inherited a lot of tools and they're currently filling my garage. So the size of the building it's slightly longer than, or larger in square footage, and mostly because it's longer. Because I'd be able to fit 2 vehicles in there, nose to tail. And that way I would be able to hold a personal vehicle in as well as having one, a project essentially. The height is because I want to be able to have, and sorry, to speak to the potentially me moving and selling the property. Without unforeseen circumstances, I have zero intent of moving. This is a property that I wish to spend the rest of my life in. If everything goes well. I don't wish to run a business out of it. I simply want to have it large enough that I won't regret it in the future if me and my wife decide to buy an RV or anything of the such.
Thank you.
Councillor Heffernan, you're fine? Okay, same question and you've answered it already. Okay. Well, if there's no one else, we have a motion before us. And that is that minor variance application A26, 2022, filed by Scott and Sheila McGuire for relief with the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size of 200.6 square meters, that is 2,159 square feet, and a height of 7.24 meters, that's 23.77 feet, for all accessory buildings for property legally described as Lot 12, Plan 682, in the municipality of Middlesex Center, County of Middlesex. It is municipally known as 14673 Medway Road be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the accessory building be located in the same general location as shown on the attached drawings, and that the owner be required to successfully obtain Section 28 permit from the Conservation Authority prior to the issuance of the building permit, and that the accessory building shall be only used for personal use or is permitted in force and effect of zoning bylaw. I will look for a mover, please, and a second. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts. I'll call the vote. Oh, sorry, I did forget one amended. We also have the further reasons for granting the variance. Application A2622 complies with the general intent and purpose of the Middlesex Center's official plan. It complies with general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature and it represents appropriate development on the subject property. Okay, so sorry about that. And we have a moving seconder, so I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And now we can move to 8.3. Good night. And this is for number 827, 2022. And again, Dan, this is your file if you'd like to present your staff report.
Through the chair to members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of this application for minor variance is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center zoning bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible gross floor area for an accessory building in the agricultural A1 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings of 334.45 square meters or 4.13% lot coverage, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 165 square meters, gross floor area, or 3% lot coverage, which in this particular case would be a maximum permissible size of 100. The effect of the proposal would be to facilitate construction of one accessory building in the side yard of the existing residential property. The subject lands are located within an agricultural area. They abut agricultural lands to the east, south, and west, as well as the former gravel pit to the north. It does maintain a frontage of approximately 150.8 meters along County Road 16 or Illerton Road, and an area of approximately 2 acres. It is designated agricultural in the County of Middlesex plan, agricultural in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned agricultural A1 zone in the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. So in review of the application, I have reviewed the proposal against the Floor Planning Act tests. In consideration of my analysis, I would note that the proposed size of the accessory building exceeds the footprint and area of the existing single detached dwelling on the lands. And given that the residential accessory building is larger than the principal use, that being the existing single detached dwelling, I did find that the proposal was not minor in nature. It was not considered an appropriate use of the land, and it did not maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw. So in recognition of my review, I have included a recommendation to refer that application back to staff to provide the applicant with the opportunity to amend their application, which would limit the size of the structure to the lesser of either 3% lot coverage or the overall ground floor area of the existing dwelling, and that the application, if referred back to staff, be brought back to the committee for a decision at the February 5th. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Sorry, the clerk was just clarifying an item for me. Thank you for the presentation. And next, I'm not sure if, is one of you Carlos? Oh, okay. So this is Carlo Russo. He has the floor next if you'd like to comment on the presentation, or if you just want to be available for questions, that's fine. That's fine. That's just perfect. Did you want another chair? I think there's only 2 there. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The floor is yours if you'd like to present something or make comments or arguments.
So when my husband and I were originally looking for a home in the area, we wanted a double car garage with some room for his tinkering. He loves to tinker and repair little small engines and work generally in the garage. We bought a house with only a single car garage, with the intent, with this beautiful big open space next door, to maybe build a garage so he could do tinkering and we could store our excess machinery, because we have a few tractors and we have a snow blower and whatnot. So for example, tonight I came home and had to park in the driveway instead of in the garage because there are tractors in our. So we also have a tarp structure on the property right now because of the amount of storage that we feel we would like to have. And this building would present a much more appealing option as opposed to building temporary structures on the site to facilitate more storage, and then also have my husband have a little area to have his hobbies. We're more than happy to answer questions, but this was kind of the dream when we bought our forever home, which is not the largest home in the neighborhood, but we also understand that sometimes hobbies need a little more room.
Thank you for that presentation. There are no other people in the galleries, so I will look now to council for questions, comments, observations. Deputy Mayor Brennan?
You, Madam Mayor, for the applicant. As you've seen in the report, the recommendation is to refer back to the staff for further consideration between you and staff. Is that acceptable to you? Like, are you okay that, because obviously, you know, I'm going to lean towards supporting the report, but I just want to know what your feelings were on that.
We're more than happy to work with staff, and does that mean Dan? Okay, this is only my second council, so we're happy to work with Dan, as long as Dan is happy to work with us.
Great. Floor is yours, Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to the applicant, yeah, I agree with Deputy Mayor Brennan that you got to go back. It's a little too vague. Yeah.
May I ask just also one quick question? Is the appearance an issue outside of the size? Because we just want to make sure we come back with as many answers as possible.
Staff would be best positioned to answer that. We as council don't tell you what your home should look like or your barn should look like or your garage. Yeah, no, but I mean, to the extent that there are parts of a building that are required and or like that appearance part, that that's their job. Great, Councillor Arts, follow on.
And you might want to confer with our drainage people, because I know there's municipal drain back there, but I don't know if there's a branch that goes through your property. So if there was, it would probably have to be replaced or beefed up. I'm not for sure if there's branch that crosses there or not.
Do you know who we would be in touch with for that kind of information?
Staff. Drainage. There is and Dan will know. So,
thank you.
Is there anyone? Oh, Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, maybe to Dan, because I just noticed from the last two things that we read with that red box overlay, if that's the Conservation Authority, this house has it too, where the garage would be. So on the location map.
We have spoke, sorry.
So you'd have to, wouldn't it need to say the section 28 in there, the same as the other ones did?
We have sought approval from them and they did grant.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
If there's no one else, then there is a motion before us. And that is that minor variance application A27, 2022, filed by Carlo Iarussi on behalf of Patrick Cox and Jennifer Dickinson for relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to establish a maximum size of 269.4 square meters, that's 2,900 square feet, for all accessory buildings for property legally described as part of Lot 10, Concession 8 North in the municipality of Middlesex Center, County of Middlesex, and is municipally known as 10651 Ilderton Road, be referred back to staff, and that the owner or applicant revise the size of the accessory building not to exceed the lesser of 3% lot coverage or the overall ground floor area of the existing single detached dwelling. And further, that the application be brought back to the Committee of Adjustment to the February 15th, 2023 meeting for a decision. Mr. Hoover, please, and a second. Councillor Cates, Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and now we could have to move into public meetings. So I'm going to, I have a motion that the Committee of Adjustment adjourns at 7:01 p.m. and council resume regular meeting, and that council move into public meetings at 7:01 pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, to consider the applications listed on the January 25th, 2023 council agenda. And again, there is a procedure which is the same. I'm not going to read it all again. So we have an order of proceedings, which is exactly mirroring the other one. And I will now look to Dan to present the report for 2 Park Crescent, B13, 2022. Floor is yours, Dan.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose and effect of application for consent B 13/2022 is to convey a parcel of land for lot addition purposes, having an area of approximately 981 square meters to be merged with an abutting lot legally described as part of Lot 5, Concession 8 North, Plan C Baptist Church. The lot addition would add to an existing lot with an area of approximately 980 square meters, making the combined lot area approximately 1,957.5 square meters. The remnant lands in this case would be reduced to an area of 1,952 square meters. The remnant lands currently contain an existing single detached dwelling and detached garage, while the lands proposed to be receiving the lot addition are currently vacant and were formerly the site of an institutional building in the format of a church. So the lands are located within the hamlet of Poplar Hill Coldstream. They are bounded by residential lands in the format of single detached dwellings on all sides. The subject lands are designated hamlet within the Middlesex Center official plan. The residential portion is zoned hamlet residential first density exception HR 1-1. While the lands receiving the lot addition are zoned an institutional or within the comprehensive zoning bylaw. For clarification to the public as well as council, the applicant is requesting to amend the boundaries of the existing to rezone the lands, which has been received.
Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt. We lost you for about 30 seconds and I can't remember the last words you said, but if you could just jump back a little bit, we'd appreciate it.
If I cut out again, let me know and I'll turn my video off. So maybe I'll just start the analysis section again. So in terms of, did you hear the clarification of the public? I'll start there.
That's the piece where you need to pick up from.
All right. So clarification of the public, this particular application does not seek to establish a new lot. Rather, it's an amendment to the boundaries of two existing lots. And in this case, they're requesting to amend the boundaries to create two equal sized lots, whereas one is currently oversized and one is undersized. They have also submitted a concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application, which seeks to rezone the lands receiving addition from institutional to residential or hamlet residential. And just a note to council, this will be heard at the February 15th meeting, but just to make you aware that that application is pending as well. I have reviewed the application and note that the proposal to increase the institutional land size is considered to be appropriate and desirable, as it would establish a potential future residential lot of sufficient size to accommodate the necessary private services. To that end, the applicant has also provided several studies, including water analysis, stormwater control, as well as sanitary analysis. The requirements have further been included as conditions of the consent to ensure that the municipality is satisfied that no unintended negative consequences would occur to surrounding lands. The municipality has also received two separate letters today, which were indicating their opposition to the proposal based on concerns that the existing water table and the impact of the new residents depleting water services. The letters have also been circulated in advance of the meeting to council and will be included on the public record. I would note that the clerk, James, does have these comments, and if requested, he can read these comments to council. I would also note that the lot currently exists and would permit the institutional use as a church, daycare facilities.
We left off at a
Township
church
faci-
or daycare facilities.
Did I cut out again?
Yes, you did. At a church or daycare facilities.
Okay. So I would just note that the existing institutional zone would permit all of those types of developments on this particular parcel. In that the impact of a facility would be far greater on groundwater recharge than the applicant's proposal for a single detached dwelling. The increase in lot size could also work towards shifting a potential location of a well further away from existing wells within the area. So given the above, I am recommending approval of the consent boundary adjustment application, subject to the conditions that are listed in the planning report. Thank you.
And thank you for the presentation. Ms. Barbara Rosser is in attendance to comment on the application. That would be the agent for the proponent.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening to you and to council. I'm the planning consultant for the owners and agent for this particular application, and I would just reiterate your planner's explanation that this application would regularize 2 existing lots in Poplar Hill. It's been the subject of significant consultation with staff and the submission of reports to demonstrate serviceability. And that is with respect to water, sewer, and stormwater management. The owners understand the conditions that would apply if consent is granted and would move expeditiously to proceed with final consent. As your planner noted, the application for a zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted concurrently, and that application would address the 2 matters that require site-specific provision in respect of the lot area at very minimally under the 2,000 square meter Hamlet residential zone minimum, and the side yard for the existing dwelling, or the setback for the existing dwelling. We are confident in the reports that have been submitted with regard to water supply and groundwater, and believe that in concert with the conditions that the municipality is suggesting, that the issue of water supply would be adequately addressed and ensure there would be no negative impacts on surrounding properties. And we're here to answer questions, but believe that the matter of serviceability has been very thoroughly vetted with township staff and their review of the reports that were submitted. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Now the third item on the list is to ask any members of the public who registered for comment. We have Mr. Roby online. Okay, the floor is yours, Mr. Roby, when you're ready. Hello, Mr. Roby. If you'd like to make your comments, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
We can't hear you. We can hear a little echo in the background.
Then maybe you can call on someone else, and I'll check.
I don't think that's working.
I'm sorry.
if that works out better
Okay.
later or something. Oh, hello.
Okay.
I was gonna say, we'll come back to you if we can get this figured out. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
My system was trying to use a mic that wasn't connected.
Yeah, you need to move forward. I think you were clearer before. You're sort of fading away on us.
Okay, you have me now? Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
think we'll just listen hard.
Okay, I'll try and turn up the volume there. So my only concern is, I understand the water test has been done, but it's for quality. Is there assurances that the water table will not be dropped at all with the greater demand? And I just think that perhaps the developer or the owner should have done an assessment, or should have been asked to do an assessment in terms of the volume of water demand we can anticipate. Because the only complaint or concern I'm going to have is if in 6 months after a house goes up, I'm putting in a new well on my house. I'm going to be looking for the city or that owner to pay for it. That's a concern. But otherwise, I really don't see. I don't have objections to it. I should say I own 5 parks, so just across the street. So.
We didn't hear very clearly. I'm just going to summarize and note that your concerns relate to water, and you noted that the reports have been presented, but your concern is that there will be some impact on your water supply going forward. Yeah. You know what I would suggest perhaps is you have your thoughts. If you just put them down on paper, the clerk confirmed
Okay.
that. Yeah.
I think I solved my microphone issue. Can you hear me now? Well,
Yep.
no, I'm really sorry about that. Okay, it was unplugged. Okay, sorry. I'll just very quickly. Yeah, my only concern is the water, the volume, and if it drops the table when they develop it. I understand that the owner has development rights. And that they could put up a 50-bed institution across the street instead of this. So I'm not here to be a naysayer at all. But again, if my house or the neighbor's houses, if suddenly we can't draw water because of the instant demand, then we're going to be looking for the owner or for the city to cover the cost of putting new wells in for us. So it is a concern, and I feel that the owner should have footed the bill for an assessment of the stability of water supply, of volume for that community before we start putting more pressure on it. That's my only concern. Otherwise, I have no objection.
Okay. Thank you very much for your patience. And,
Thank you.
Next,
and thank you for yours.
Council, there are a couple of letters which are essentially common. They have a common thread and relate to water. If you want, we can have we could read one of them. Yeah, we could read one of them. Barbara has that copy. If you, yeah. Okay, so James will take care of that.
Through the chair, pardon me while I adjust my microphone a little bit there. Yes, I'll proceed to read one of the comments, noting that comments submitted are very similar in nature and have to do with respect to water supply and wells. And so I would note the comments were received by Anna and Eric Bernard, as well as Julie Hampton, both submitted today. Our complete opposition to this application has to do with the site of the proposed buildings well. According to attachment 2, our source of water, which is a sand pit, already overlaps the draw of our neighbors at redacted and redacted progress. Adding a third household to our immediate area, especially if the proposal is for a deeper dug well, could seriously impact our ability to draw water from the water table. There should be no thought to potentially removing our access to water, and any counter argument that relies on guesswork should be ignored. There is no way to predict what will happen to our water access, and as such, there should be no additional wells added that could cause our family to lose access to a basic necessity. Any geological expertise is based on assumptions and not reality. No one can see exactly what lies within the house. Should this application be approved and our water access is impacted, There are no solutions that do not include a massive expense on our part, and we currently do not need to undertake. Unless the applicant agrees to dig us a well for the same depth as the ones proposed, we can only completely oppose this application.
For that, James, and I will look to. Oh. Did you want to address that, Barbara?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would just, in response, I would say that the matter of both water quality and quantity, I believe, has been thoroughly studied as required by township staff, and that the staff were satisfied that there would be no impact on surrounding wells as a result of this particular application, bearing in mind that it is an application to regularize two existing lots as opposed to creating a new lot within Poplar Hill. But again, there has been due consideration by staff of the matter of serviceability in terms of both water, sanitary, and stormwater management. And the staff were satisfied the matters were appropriately considered.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I will now look to council. Are there questions of the applicant or any of staff? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Bruce.
Yeah, there we go. Can Dan comment on this? Has he seen this background information? So he doesn't even mention it? Or, sorry. Oh, I didn't even see it. Okay, sorry. Where is it in the report? What's the number?
Through the chair, when you look at item 9.1, which is before you, there's appendices that are attached that speak to the evaluations that were done with respect to the.
Okay, sorry, I overlooked that. It's fine, thank you.
I didn't put it on. Councillor Heffernan, go ahead.
Through the mayor to Dan, just for clarity, so that the existing lot runs from Poplar Hill Road right through to Curry Court. And so the proposal is to separate the existing house and shed from the side to the east, I guess, which is a treed lot. So basically you're making two out of one existing lot. Was that right? Oh. There's two lots there now.
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Heffernan, maybe just like for illustration purposes, I would refer you to the location map. So just for clarification for everyone, there's two lots there right now. There's the lot that runs on to Park Crescent and Curry Court, which is that corner institutional lot. And then there's the residential lot that fronts on to Poplar Hill Road. It has frontage also on Park Crescent, and then it goes all the way through. So what the applicant is requesting to do in this case is take the portion of to Park Crescent, which is that corner lot on Poplar Hill Road and Park Crescent, and transfer the back portion of that land that goes through to Curry Court to that institutional lot that fronts onto Park Crescent and Curry Court. So it kind of shows the yellow area, which is part of to Park Crescent, being transferred to that institutional lot. So no lot creation is occurring. It's just increasing in size.
So the lot that's zoned institutional right now is a treed lot. There's no buildings on it.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else? I don't see any hands. We have a motion before us. Consent application B13 2022 filed by Rob Sanderson in order to permit the adjustment of a boundary by conveying approximately 981.75 square meters to be merged with an abutting lot legally described as part of Lot 5, Concession 8, Plan C, which is Baptist Church, for a lot municipally known as 2 Park Crescent be granted, and that the application of the consent B13/2022 be subject to the 12 conditions that you'll find in your staff report, and further that the reasons for granting consent application B13/2022 include that the proposal is consistent with provincial policy statement, conforms with the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and subject to conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. Is there a mover, please? And a second. Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates. All in favor? And that is carried. All right, then. Application for consent B14 and B15, item 9.2. Dan, the floor is yours.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose of consent application B14 and B15 2022 is to sever 2 lots from an existing single detached dwelling lot. The first seeks to sever a lot with a frontage of approximately 18.44 meters on Prince and an area of approximately 620.6 square meters. The second seeks to sever a lot with a frontage of approximately 16.9 meters on Duke and an area of approximately 689.7 square meters. And the retained residential lot would have a frontage of approximately 22.2 meters on Prince and an area of approximately 761.7 square meters. And the effect of the proposed severances would be to create 2 new residential lots for the purposes of establishing a single detached dwelling on each lot, as well as to establish the existing dwelling on a separate lot. So the subject property is located within the settlement area of Kilworth. It's surrounded by residential development in the format of single detached dwellings. It's designated settlement area according to the county official plan and residential by Middlesex's official plan. The land is zoned a site-specific urban residential first density exception 4. So generally, the provincial policy statement, county official plan, as well as Middlesex Centre's official plan support land severances within existing settlement areas, so long as services are capable of existing for the proposed lots. The 3 policy documents support the intensification and infill of existing lots where it is deemed appropriate to do so. So in this case, the applicant has demonstrated that the existing lot is of a sufficient size to meet the zoning bylaw requirements in terms of frontage and area, both for the severed as well as retained lands. Additionally, the proposal would represent an intensification of existing residential lands, thereby reducing the needs for the municipality to consider expanding settlement boundaries within agricultural areas. So given the above, I am recommending approval of consent files B14 and B15 /2022, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Dan. We don't have anyone, an owner, a representative, members of the public to speak to this, so I'll look to council. Is there anything here that you'd like to query of Dan? No? Shaking heads. Question?
I was just gonna make a comment, so. Quite often when these lots are divided, we then get a very setbacks requirement, and so I just wanted to note that they are whatever they are supposed to be. Would not get.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands, so The motion before us is that the consent applications B14 and B15, 2022, filed by Connor Brown on behalf of Mr. Versteeg in order to sever two residential lots from 2,051 square meter residential property in order to facilitate construction of single detached dwellings on the severed lots, one which has a frontage of approximately 18.44 meters on Prince Street and an area of approximately 620.6 meters, and the second with a frontage of approximately 16.9 meters on Duke Street and an area of approximately 689.7 meters, and a retained frontage of approximately 22 meters on Prince Street and an area approximately 761.7 meters from property municipally known as 115 Prince Street be granted, and that the consents B14 and 15 are subject to the 15 conditions that we'll find in the staff report, and further that the reason for granting the consent applications B14 and 15 include that the proposals consistent with the provincial policy statement conforms to the County of Middlesex official plan and the Middlesex Centre official plan, and subject to conditions the proposal complies with Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. Sir, mover, please. Seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Burrs, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And Dan, I understand you're going to take the next item 9.3 and speak to us about the displaying the shade official plan amendment number 61.
Through the chair, yes. So thanks, Mayor and members of council. So just for reiteration, staff are bringing forward a proposed official plan housekeeping amendment as a result, primarily from legislative changes which have occurred to the Planning Act over the last year, I guess. So more specifically, the purpose of this particular housekeeping amendment is to implement and update complete application requirements for different types of applications, primarily site plan control in this case. So the amendment also seeks to provide options for council to delegate the passing of minor zoning bylaw amendments to either a municipal committee, an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, and also provide direction as it relates to requests for the cancellation of certificates of consent previously issued a municipality. So all the amendments that are considered are as a direct result of recent updates to the Planning Act, those being Bill 13, which is the Supporting People, Supporting Businesses Act from 2021, Bill 276, which is the Supporting Recovery and Competitiveness Act, 2021, and as well Bill 109, which is the More Homes for Everyone Act in 2020. So as council is likely aware, Bill 109 made some fairly sweeping legislative changes to the Planning Act that imposed tight application review timelines for Planning Act applications, and also it did introduce requirements for municipalities to refund certain types of applications, those being site plan, zoning bylaw amendments, as well as official plan amendments, subject to certain time intervals in the review process. So in response, ministry staff have advised planning authorities to establish more concrete, what we would call frames of reference for complete application requirements, which thereby provides us the opportunity to reject applications that would not meet our requirements for materials review, and effectively not start the clock for a review on a particular application type. So it is acknowledged that Middlesex Center's official plan does contain complete application requirements. Planning staff are recommending to further expand those requirements to include potential peer review as part of a complete application, thereby basically front loading the review process and avoiding the need to potentially refund an application by not meeting the certain timelines that are applicable. Additionally, it would be noted that all other approvals also must be in place. And in this case, for site plan, that would be things such as zoning prior to the acceptance of a site plan application. So essentially, we're put in a position where we cannot process applications concurrently. Further, staff are recommending including policies that would permit council to delegate minor zoning bylaw amendments to a committee or staff member, which would include such items that the province has identified as such instances of like a holding zone removal or a temporary use bylaw. So the Act states that councils must include permissions in the official plan if they do intend to delegate the authority, which hence its inclusion in this housekeeping amendment. However, it is noted that council would still be required to pass a bylaw which would potentially delegate that authority if they desire to do so. Inclusion in the official plan doesn't automatically delegate that authority. It just provides the opportunity for council if they so choose in the future. Additionally, updates through Bill 276 does permit municipalities to cancel consent certificates. So language has been included in the official plan, which will help staff to evaluate any potential future applications in the future. Further, staff are also recommending including policies that would permit council to delegate. Oh, sorry, I already covered that. Perfect. So with that said, the amendment would conform to recent changes to the Planning Act, and it does provide clarity as it relates to complete application requirements for certain applications that have been or can be made under the Planning Act. Delegation of the authority to pass bylaws under Section 34 of the Act that are minor in nature, and the evaluation of requests to cancel certificates of consent, which ultimately will hopefully improve the development application process. And really, at the end of the day, our concern is just meeting those timelines. So that's what this particular housekeeping amendment encompasses, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions council may have on the amendment.
Okay, thanks for that summary of a lot of change. I'll look to council. Are there any questions, Dan, on? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. So that's a lot of things. So would this mean that less things would come to council and somebody else would say, yeah, that's okay, and not council?
Through the chair. So yeah, that's a good question. And so the enabling of the policies to delegate authorities of things like minor zoning bylaw amendments, which is included as a suggestion in this amendment, would potentially, I guess, bypass the formal council requirement. However, the Act still stipulates that a public meeting is required. So in your particular case, the application would still come before council for that public meeting component. However, the authority to approve that amendment could be delegated to staff. But still, council still has the opportunity to review and provide comments on it, but they could potentially not be the decision maker. So similar to what you see with the site plan delegation process, that has now been delegated to staff with the intent that hopefully it speeds up potential review of these certain minor applications.
So like, for example, when you say a temporary use, so if somebody wants to keep their house there while they build their new one, Is that something that that you would do and no longer come to council as an example?
Through the chair, yeah, you're exactly right. Looking at we've identified two, which would be removing of holding zones, which really at the end of the day is just confirmation that they've completed a certain task that was applied to the original zoning on the lands. And then the second one would exactly be what you had referenced there. So those temporary use zoning bylaw amendments, such as I'd like to live in my house while I build a new house. And the whole intent there is just to speed up the process and not bog down councils.
And then my other question that I had made a note to ask was, I don't understand the cancel a certificate of consent. Like, doesn't somebody come forward and get approval and they meet their criteria and then they get the certificate of consent? But this doesn't mean that we take it away from them after we've done it, does it?
So through the chair, through Bill 276, the province introduced this idea. So previously under legislation, the idea was once a consent, always a consent. So you couldn't cancel a consent as issued by the municipality. Through Bill 276, they've introduced this legislation, which would potentially permit a property owner to apply to a municipality to reverse a previous consent that was issued by a municipality. So say there was a situation where someone severed a lot, for whatever reason, they no longer want that to be severed, they could apply to the municipality to basically null and void the original consent application.
Okay, so it's not that we're gonna go to them and say, hey, we said you could sever it, but we're taking it back. They're taking it back, not us taking it from them.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question? I don't see any. I guess it occurred to me as you're presenting and I've done some reading. You're the professional planner. Is your sense that this processes will be streamlined by this? I mean, it sounds like it might be from some of the things that you're saying about, well, it doesn't go through this, but I'm just kind of wondering, do you have a sense that everything will be more smooth or streamlined, or we won't go back and forth, or any thoughts on that?
Ooh, through the chair, certainly aspects of the more so I would say Bill 276 as well as Bill 13 do provide opportunities for municipalities to speed up certain aspects. In our particular case, it's kind of more so applicable to larger municipalities with things like planning committees that do the review first and then comes to council subsequently. It basically removes that second step from those particular municipalities. So in our case, it's still going to have to come forward. The public meeting is still going to have to occur, but it can be delegated to staff to deal with after that public meeting occurs. So that it is a benefit to that end. In terms of the changes of Bill 109 to site plan review, that's a challenging one to answer, honestly. It's more so what I would say fronting review requirements prior to accepting the complete application. So what I mean by that is the municipality is going to have to be fairly satisfied that the plans that have been submitted as part of their site plan review are basically final when they are accepted as part of that review process. So what it's going to do is and that's the intent of adding these complete application requirements into the official plan, is that it allows us to front end that review process so we don't get ourselves in a position where after the 60-day mark we have to refund 50% of the application. So that's really what the intent is here, is to allow us that ability to do a lot of that review upfront before we even accept it as an application. Whether or not that's good is, I guess, to be determined. We'll see how it works as we move forward.
Sounds like the point at which you start measuring is moved as opposed to anything being eliminated from the process. Yeah, so we can't be blamed for being slow. Don't mind that. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. There's a lot in there, Dan. If there are no further questions, we have a motion before us that official plan amendment number 61 to implement policies as a result of legislative changes to the Planning Act be adopted and forwarded to the County of Middlesex for consideration of approval. Is there a mover, please? The seconder. Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Burrs, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thanks again. Good night. And that's it for the regular agenda. We have a motion here that the public meetings adjourn at 7:43 p.m. and council resume the regular meeting. Mover, please. And second, Councillor Arts, Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. There are no notices of motion. There are five items in correspondence. Just before I look to everyone here, I don't know if you noticed, but the first item there is referring to the Western Ontario Warden's Caucus Chair. The mayor, well, warden at the County of Huron, Mr. Glenn McNeil, has been voted to be the chair, and so we'll be seeing that at the Roma Board executive. So it's good to see the bodies are starting to populate. So congratulations to him on that, and I look forward to working with him there. Is there any other comment or question? Anything to highlight on? Nope. Okay, then we have a motion that correspondence items 12.1 through 12.5 be received as information. Moved by Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Kate seconds. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I'll look to the Deputy Mayor to provide us with County Council updates, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We started off on January 17th with a visioning session with the Integrity Commissioner. We went through his job as the Integrity Commissioner, proposed meeting authority, and also some other things that he would be able to do. Our professional, his phone number, it's marked independent solutions at gmail.com, and his mark is, and his phone number is 519-670-4517, and he's looking after all the county stuff now. So we spent about an hour with him and over his duties. We had a quick review of planning stuff with our planner. The county is going to continue with management consulting service agreement. And they're providing some management services with Oneida Nation of Stems. Phil Rayburn has been working with them on some things, so that's going to continue. Our current warden, Kathy Burkhardt Jessen, has been applied to sit on the Good Roads board, and the county approved that she go ahead and do that. The attainable housing review, currently the decreasing housing affordability, limited housing, rental housing. There seems to be a lot of problems getting funding. The funding all has to goes to the city, and then it comes back through the county, and there seems to be some problems that we don't feel the county's getting its fair share. Affordable housing has been somewhat defined as rent less than $1,039 a month, and new houses less than $572,000 a year, or for $572,000 per new house, and that's all based income type thing. Loss samples are a lot less egg masses this past year compared to a year ago, and they think they'll be on down 10 for the next couple of years, because they seem to go in a 5-year cycle. So we're on the downside of that cycle right now. The third take of modernization, the county is going with Blackline Consulting plan recommendation to revise IT service agreement under the modernization intake. County council, you're only on the archive situation said, and the county is going to electronic archive options rather than keeping papers, putting it all on Laserfish or something like that to cut down on the amount of stuff we have. There's a new set of traffic lights going in at Carriage Road and Little Drive, which will affect our Delaware station greatly because I think they were over 14 to 15 times last year a car accident at that intersection. And with their number of calls rising to 171 in the past year, this is a good news story to bring their number of calls down a little bit, starting to get a little bit out of hand for that station. But with those traffic lights in, that hopefully will reduce a bunch of calls. Those were the major highlights. Sure. That's probably within the Carriage in Little this year, this coming year. Traffic lights. Yes, yes. Traffic lights are a lot cheaper. Traffic lights cost upwards of about $200,000 a year. We're around about $2 million. No, it's regular stoplights. Regular stoplights. And then I believe it was Longwoods and Carriage, possibly the next 2 years, there may be lights going in there also. They haven't met the count yet, but they feel that in the next 2 years they may. So stay tuned for that. It's all based on the county's criteria for stoplights. Yeah, those are definitely stoplights going in there, and there's one lights up in Stratford going in this year. Yep.
Seeing no hands then, for no other business, we'll look to bylaws, and those are, the motion before us is that bylaws 2023, number 008 through 2023, number 10, listed on the January 25th, 2023 agenda be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Arts, and seconded by Councillor Shipley. All in favor? And that is carried. All right, and then there's the bylaw to adopt, confirm all actions and proceedings of the that one. Oh, that's part of 10. Sorry, bottom of the page. I was looking at. Yeah, all we need to do is adjourn. Motion before us is the council for the municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns to January 25th, 2023 council meeting at 7:49 p.m. Deputy Mayor Brennan, Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. And see you next week on Wednesday. Council.